Chapter 2 and week 3 is about credibility. We move to this next because I think the foundation of responsible advocacy really is credibility. Credibility matters because who offers an argument matters. You see this all the time, particularly right now, right? You know for yourself that one person telling you something doesn't exactly mean as much as someone else telling you that thing. It might be in different circumstances, and it might be depending on what they say, but credibility makes a difference. We're having the discord in our country at this point, politically, right, is in part because different people hold credibility for large swaths of the country and hold no credibility for other parts of the country. And so this is one of the reasons that we're not believing each other, because credibility makes a difference. Credibility is the ethos or reputation. Some people call it ethos. I don't care. Ethos, depends on where you went to grad school, right? It can loosely be thought of as reputation anyway, and it's the audience's assessment of the extent to which the advocate is deserving of trust. And one of the most important parts of this is that it's the audience's assessment. Credibility doesn't exist inherently inside each and every one of us, right? Credibility is given to us by the audience. So I like to think about it like humor. I think I'm hysterical. I'm the funniest person that you're going to meet in a long time. But if I try to be funny and nobody laughs, I am not hysterical. I am not funny. I am just deluded, right? So people are only funny that we say are funny. They're not inherently funny. Same with credibility. You can be the most upright, righteous person there is, but if the audience doesn't give you that kind of assent, then you don't have much credibility. Credibility, there are two types of credibility. One that we start off with is initial credibility. That's the credibility we hold at the beginning of an encounter. We have credibility even before we step into a room or meet someone, right? So you know this as well. Probably you have met friends of friends. You know, the number one way surveys, a lot of them show that we meet our significant others is through a friend. And that's in part because of initial credibility, right? Because you trust your friends to have and know people you like, and that you might be good with, right? So initial credibility is based on reputation. That is something that you hold beforehand, what people know about you, even if they've never seen you. You knew something, perhaps, about me before you took this class. Perhaps you asked somebody in your other classes, or maybe you just heard, oh, Dr. Norton, right? She likes to give a lot of papers. I don't know what you heard about me. I don't really want to know what you've heard about me. So, but we all have reputations, right? Second, previous exposure, right? You've had experience with me in the class before, or you have experience in a classroom before, right? There's different kinds of exposure that comes with this. And so you might know what to think because you've seen that speaker in another event or heard them on their last tour. Hannah Gadsby, one of my favorite comedians, right? So I knew a little bit about what to expect in her second televised special because I'd watched the first one. 3, preconceived notions. We also call this background authority. So preconceived notions in one way are those things that we know about situations, so we make assumptions about speakers or presenters or whoever we're talking with, right? So you might know that Fontbonne instructors are usually pretty good, I hope, right? So you might have expected me to at least be pretty good. I have tickets to not anymore, but I used to have tickets to the St. Louis Speaker Series, and I didn't always know the people who they had speaking, but, you know, has a reputation as a good speaker series. Everybody else I'd seen there was pretty interesting, so I went every time expecting to enjoy it. We have to be a little bit careful with background authority, though, and preconceived notions, though, right? Because this is also the root of stereotypes. Right? So you might think you know something about someone or have expectations about them. Oh, I can't trust a used car salesman. Right? Might be a preconceived notion that you have when maybe very much you can. This one. Or you might think that these people are like that in some kind of way. I don't know. There's lots of preconceived notions. I don't have to tell you what those are, right? We have to be careful about those when we're assessing initial credibility. So your examples might be your teachers, your friends of friends. There might be other types. Second type of credibility is transactional credibility. Transactional credibility is held at the end of an encounter. It's the amount of modification that happens in that interaction. So we all expect something at the beginning, and then what happens matters to how we assess credibility by the end. So credibility can increase someone's speakers. That happens in particular when a speaker or an advocate exceeds an audience's expectations. They were better than you thought they were going to be. They were smarter, they were more engaged, they were more interesting, they were just not as bad in some ways as you had expected them to be. So I tried to lower your expectations about these videos, told you that they were low production quality, although I never meant that they were low in quality of material, but I didn't want you to expect something glitzy. So perhaps when you read them, you're like, oh yeah, these are fine. They're not terrible, right? But I didn't decrease your credibility, or my credibility with them. And sometimes we don't have much expectation at all. And when people blow us away or meet them, then we're pleasantly surprised and our credibility goes up. This happens to me with opening acts, right? When I go to hear a band and I don't know the opening act and I'm like, well, they're the opening act. I don't know what to think. And they're great, or they're even pretty good. I'm super excited. Their credibility goes way up. The Sleepy Truckers did that to me in Wichita, Kansas in 1998, and I still remember it. They opened for the Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show, so take a look at them. We can lose credibility too, and honestly, it's super easy to lose credibility, right? When speakers fail to meet expectations, especially basic expectations, when they're just not as good as you thought they were going to be, and when they violate audiences' trust, then we tend to assess them less well at the end of an interaction than we did at the beginning. We'll talk about these in class, these credibility questions for discussion. One, in general, who has credibility with you and on particular issues? You know, different parts of our lives, we hold different people to have credibility. Who do you listen to where? Two, what are the dangers inherent in relying on initial and background credibility? What factors could cause someone to gain or lose credibility that we haven't discussed? So there are three factors affecting an advocate's credibility. We're going to talk about knowledge and then take a break and come back and talk about character and goodwill in presentation number 2. The three stools, or the three legs of the stool of credibility, is knowledge, sound character and goodwill, and dynamism. Knowledge, informed opinion trumps uninformed opinion. Lots of you already were getting at this when you said, if I don't know what's going on, I'm not going to argue, right? That's because you know that informed opinion is important. And this speaking when you don't know what's going on, not especially helpful. So knowledge can be based on a few different things. One kind of knowledge is based on experience. Experiential knowledge is deeply personal. It adds rich texture and personalization to our argumentation, and often to people's understanding of us. Helps us bring empathy. It helps us understand on a personal level abstract concepts, and it's extraordinarily powerful first-person experience usually. Right? It's important testimony for all the reasons I just listed, and it can enhance people's credibility. If you know that, if someone knows that you have experience in this, you have lived it, it gives it a different flavor. So I don't know about you, but I've been reading first-person testimony of people who had and have had COVID, right? Like, I'm interested in what is happening to them and how is this affecting them. One, because I want to know, because I care about them, or even if I don't care about them, I care about what might happen to me, right? And so knowing this is important. You have first-person credibility experience in maybe something in what we're talking about, one of the topics that are available for debate that we're going to be deciding on soon. I have first-person credibility in any number of things, right? I've been around here a long time. So in higher education, I come from a small place, 400 people, not a, kids go to college there, but higher education isn't the end-all be-all, and sometimes it's even suspect. You know, those liberal college professors who are indoctrinating all of our students, trying to turn them into, I don't know what, socialists probably. And so when I go back and I talk to people who were there, I hold some credibility with them. I can make some headway in saying, you know, that's not necessarily the case. In particular, it's not the case with me and the people I know. I'm trying to educate people and teach them good critical thinking skills, and if I could indoctrinate them, they would all be doing their reading every week, right? And they listen to that from me because they know I have experience, but also because I have some initial credibility, because I grew up there, so they trust that a little bit. And because my dad's the barber, so they trust that a lot. Knowledge and experience can be limiting, however, right? And our experiences aren't always typical. We haven't had the same experience as everyone else, which gives a rich texture, but might mean that we can't draw broader generalizations about only our experience. That's probably why you ask 2 or 3 people about a professor as opposed to one, unless you just really trust that one, right? So there are limits really to experiential knowledge. And in those limits, we can fill the gaps with research-based knowledge. This also can be useful to build credibility. So it's not available to everyone. It is available to everyone, unlike direct experience. We can't all have the same kind of experience or direct experience with everything, but we can do some research, and this class will probably be bolstering our any kind of credibility that we have with knowledge-based experience, right? So it's important to use that to do that research, and it's also important to let people know that you have. Although sometimes that's hard to do without being annoying and seeming like a know-it-all, which some audiences are fine with and others not so much. A few tips on signaling your knowledge and preparation without being annoying. One is just being honest and telling people about your interest in the subject. Why are you interested? What have you done? What kind of research have you done on this? Where does this interest come from? 2, weaving research throughout the presentation, right? Citing credible sources is helpful with this, especially helpful with this when it comes to argumentation. That helps people know that you've done the research, that you've done the reading, that you understand the issues. Your first assignment's all about starting to do this, by the way, your first more writing assignment. And 3, admitting your gaps in knowledge when appropriate. Sometimes it's hard to say, I don't know the answer to that, particularly when you feel like you should know, or when it feels like everybody else has all the answers. But admitting that actually can increase our credibility, as opposed to decreasing our credibility. We'll pick up with sound character and goodwill in the next video, so hang tight and come back for part 2.